Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining the webinar. Really excited that you're here. Tonight's webinar is pre-recorded. I'm pre-recording it because I had a flight going out at the same time as the webinar, and it was an unplanned kind of emergency event. So I'm recording this webinar and sending it to everybody who's on the list. And also there will be the webinar at 6:30. If you are joining at this time, just know that this is pre-recorded, so there will not be Q&A this time. However, we will pick up with Q&A next week. I hope this recording is helpful to you. And you can watch this and hopefully have some questions for next week. Again, my sincere apologies that I'm not able to do this live tonight, but here we go. So again, this webinar is called the 6 key strategies to creating an effective transition and reintegration plan for your returning teen or young adult. I am Vania Matheus, and I am the president and CEO of V Mathews Therapeutic and Educational Consulting. Really glad that you're here. Again, this recording will be available. We're not going to stop for Q&As tonight, so that's different. And we'll be getting this out to you as soon as we possibly can. Here's a little bit about me. My background is in school counseling, and then I have another master's in marriage and family therapy. I've worked with teens and families for over a decade and worked as an educational consultant for the last 7 years, opening my practice in 2008. And I have researched a great deal on transitions and reintegration. So I am here to share that information with you. The goal of the 6-part webinar is to prepare you for what to expect, educate you on the process of transition and reintegration, what works, to inspire confidence by having you look at what you already know, and to empower you by giving you how-to strategies that work in a research base, and to help you create an effective multi-dimensional plan. So, our first week, we talked about facing your fears. This webinar, I am still recording, and I will send it out to you once it's recorded. A couple weeks ago, we did resiliency, protective factors, and a multi-systemic spiderweb approach to resourcing your student through reintegration. Some of the principles that we're going to be discussing tonight really have a lot to do with resourcing and putting that structure together. Week 3, we had Dr. Fred Peepman that talked to us about boundaries and communication skills. And this is now week 4. We're on savvy home contracts, rules, expectations, and the 90-day calendar plan, your answer to structure. Very excited about tonight. Upcoming is school and community team. We're also going to take some time and answer the questions from this last week. And then in week 6, we're going to do a review, and we will do plan B. B is for backup. Don't leave treatment without one. So we hope that you join us for all of these. Okay, so week 4, savvy home contracts, rules, expectations, and the 90-day calendar plan, your answer to structure. Here's what we're going over tonight. This is an overview of tonight's presentation. We're going to talk about how to think about a home contract. We're going to talk about rules and keeping them simple, the 5-rule plan. We're going to talk about expectations, and we're going to talk about what a 90-day calendar plan is, why 90 days, and how to flex on this. So let's start the evening talking about the home contract. This is usually a topic that kind of frustrates me, because what I see a lot of the times is parents going to great lengths to create a contract that they think should happen, and then getting their kid to sign their signature on it, saying, okay, yes, I agree. And I'm going to talk here a little bit about the meaning of contract. A contract is a spoken agreement concerning employment, sales, or tenancy that is intended to be enforceable by law. So a contract really is about both parties doing their part. And I like that principle in theory for a teen, but a lot of times when you're making a contract and your kiddo's still over in therapeutic boarding school or at residential treatment, they're really not in the space to fully understand what they're agreeing to. And so what I mean by that is that they're motivated to get out. So anything that you're going to put on that piece of paper, they're probably going to say yes to. So where parents often get really disappointed is when they write a whole contract, their kid signs their name to the contract, child comes home, you're living everyday life, and all of a sudden the child breaks the contract and just says, "Oh, well, I didn't really agree to that. I just signed that so that, you guys would let me out of there." And then there's not appropriate consequences in place because it was more of an agreement and a contract. And then it all starts kind of falling apart. Trust is broken and there's not a real plan. So I have to ask you, if you're setting rules and expectations into motion, is your child really agreeing with them? And remember, young people tend to agree with anything until they don't. Um, can you enforce the contract? So, again, if you're going to call it a home contract and you have your child sign their name to it, you have got to make sure that you can really enforce the contract. Um, Anytime you are making a plan, a contract, or a home plan, you've got to look for yourself on whether this is sustainable. So, a lot of you are going to see templates that come out of the schools that you're working with on different home contracts or things that they think are a good idea. And those may very well be a good idea when you're, trying to parent a child in Utah or in Idaho or Montana. But does the plan work in everyday life in Palo Alto, in Los Gatos, in the Bay Area? Do your expectations, is what you want your child to do enforceable with your calendar and where you're at on a daily basis? So again, part of bringing a child home is really understanding, okay, can I develop a sustainable, enforceable plan that I can maintain, that over time, if the child decides to agree or not agree with the contract, I'm able to enforce it and I'm able to follow through consistently. If your answer is no, then, again, we go back to, should this child really come home? But we're going to talk about how to make a user-friendly plan. So again, sustainability is really a high point of any plan. So I want to propose that instead of calling it a home contract, I really like to call it more of a home compass or a home plan. So again, the reason why, and this seems technical, but this is just a way to think through this. A contract is really a compass for you as a parent to refer to when situations arise so that you can be consistent. It is for you. This contract is not for your kid. So, what this means is, yes, your child is reading this. You want them to understand it and understand that these are the expectations by which you will have them in the home. And that if they can't meet the expectations, that there will be discussions on whether this level of care is going to work for them or whether they need something more. So that your child understands upfront, I don't want to be a police warden and go through every single expectation with you all the time while you're trying to sort of outmaneuver me. If that's going on, there's no discussion. We're back to, it's not going to be a good fit at home. But instead of contract, I'm going to change this to plan. So when you're looking at the home plan, it's a compass for you. It's it's what you do when your child is trying to negotiate with you, which is completely normal. When they come back, you've set down some expectations and they think that they are, hey, these are too rigid. This is like being back in the program. I don't like these. That's your compass. That's your commitment to yourself as a parent. You are basically, when you're making the home contract or plan, you're saying, this is my commitment. When I'm lost and I get a negotiating child on my behalf, I'm going to come over to my commitment here and I'm going to look what I can committed to. Because again, what your number one goal with your child is to provide a level of consistency. You want to consistently enforce whatever that you put in place. So again, and that's back to sustainability. Make sure that you can enforce something and that it makes sense what you're trying to enforce, and that it's sustainable. But also go back to your commitments and look at, okay, how can I be consistent? Because consistency is really the thing that's going to teach your child that you are serious and that your word is is solid. So what you say, you mean, and you follow through. And they're going to learn that, mom and dad you're not playing around here. This is, you really intend to follow through. And so they can test you once and they can test you twice. They can, test one parent and the other parent and try to, pit. They can do all the rigmarole of manipulation, but the compass is going to always be there. It also makes a great way when you're in the middle of an argument with a child who does not like a rule or an expectation to say, oh, wait, what were our commitments here? What were my commitments? Oh, I committed that, this is how it was going to be for this period of time. So I'm sorry, I have to follow through on that. And I understand that you are upset with that. And if I were in your position, I'd probably be. Nevertheless, I'm going to have to follow through with this. So if you choose to break that, there will be consequences. Okay, so what makes a home contract savvy is, again, I'm putting here, not calling it a contract, I would say a plan or a compass. It's a plan, done and done. It does not depend on your kiddo's potentially vacillating ability to agree. So don't get names signed on it. Empower yourself in looking at this and just saying to yourself, this is my compass. This is what I'm committing to. And then what you can do with your child is you can say, do you think you're ready to follow these? And do you think that, I'm going to have a problem with you testing all of these out or saying that they're unfair? And then your child's going to give you an answer. And I would have that conversation with the therapist at the program far before your child comes home. I'd say maybe a couple months before, I'd say maybe on a home visit. But really just saying, okay, these are the expectations. Do you think you can meet them? But it's not a contract. It's letting your child know, okay, if you don't think you can meet them, this is what's expected at home. And so, what do you need to do from now until the time you graduate so you can meet these? Because if you can't, home may not be an option. Make sure that your child understands it, and that there will be consequences with the plan if they choose to not follow through. A savvy plan is when your plan is absolutely enforceable, and we just talked about that, and sustainable. And savvy is when it does not depend on whether your child agrees with what you are expecting or not. Okay, so let's talk about rules. I like to keep rules really simple because the way that I define rules are more of standards. They are must haves. They are absolutely, you know what, if you're breaking these, we're not okay. We're not okay, and we probably need to get some help, or we need to ramp up the help for you, or we need to intervene in some kind of way. So rules are like, the big daddies. You don't mess. And what I like to do is keep it very simple. And I would say keep it under 5 rules, 5 rules or less. The reason why, again, is you're going to get into expectations, and expectations is where you really give the definitions of what is expected for a child. But the rules are, they are based on absolutes. They're not going to change with time. It's not going to be something that's flexible. You're going to, 30 years down the road, you're going to have the same rule in your house. Rules are about maintaining relationships. So let me reiterate this because this is an important point. Sometimes what I see with parents when they're making the rules is that the rules are more expectation based, and then it starting to feel like a game of Monopoly. If you do this with your cell phone, if you're on the cell phone too long, you lose 2 days of your phone privilege, or something like that, and then the rules get really cumbersome. But when we're looking at expectations, that's one thing. Rules are really about, okay, how do we relate to each other so that we can have a physically and emotionally safe environment? So, again, these are really based on your values as a family, and these should target areas that were the major problems before. Um, so again, no more than 5 rules, absolute must haves, rules for everyone. That's another point. These aren't just rules for little Jimmy. These are rules for mom and dad and sister and brother. And these are, when you're bringing up and having a family discussion or a family meeting, checking in and seeing how people think that they're doing with the rules. And, again, how safe does it feel in this family? Okay, when you're coming up with rules or just kind of asking yourself, all right, what do we value? What should be the main rules of our house? Ask yourself this question. How would you answer this? In this house, what do you want your child to be doing? So, example, in this house, we communicate with respect. In this house, we place relationship with family over our desires. In this house, we act trustworthy. So keep rules in the positive. Use the no statement to define exactly what you mean. And here's an example of one of my clients. These are the home rules they set out for their returning daughter. What they said as the rules is this is a clean home. What this means is no drugs and no alcohol. Everybody gets to be safe here. That means no teasing and no violence. Everybody is to tell the truth. There's no secrets, and all friends are safe and healthy. So if you look at these are the standards. These tell the child the values that are important to you, and they're all enforceable. So again, enforceable doesn't mean that you write next to it, and here's the consequence if you break it. Enforceable means that if a rule is broken, gosh, it's time to really intervene and see what's going on. Because if you're breaking a rule, then something is really, really out of whack, and we need to give it close attention. So again, rules hit the major no points that were trouble areas in the past. Don't spend a lot of time creating rules that don't really apply because they were not problems. So, if your child has been a cutter, one of the things that you'll want to say is in this house, we keep ourselves physically and emotionally safe. And you can define under that no cutting. Um, and but if let's say they'd never had a problem with drugs and alcohol, well, under expectations, you can say drugs and alcohol, are a no. But under the rules, that really wasn't the problem. So when you're making the rules, make them focus to, none of us are going to do that, and especially you. But make it into a rule that not only applies to their situation, but the family as a whole. Expectations. So, expectations and rules, they're two different complementary category. And expectations is really what you want your child to be doing. So, what you're expecting, what you say to them, hey, because you've gone through therapeutic treatment and because you've accomplished that and because you have now graduated, our expectations is that you can now do A, B, C, and D, and we don't have to be a police warden after you. And that if you can prove to us that you can do these things, there will be more privileges resulting for you. So we're not going to spend a whole lot of time thinking about, here's your expectation, here's the consequence if you break it. We're going to say, we expect that you can maintain this level of being. So, an expectation is a belief that something will happen or is likely to happen. It's a feeling or belief of success and that something will be. And this is really how you should approach your child when it comes to defining what they should be doing. And these are the different areas of putting together their plan, the specifics that apply to them on how they're behaving, what they're doing, and we'll get into the categories. So, this is where you get really specific. Expectations are based on trust and the earning of trust. So, again, if your expectation is that you're putting for a 90-day period that, Jimmy is going to ask his mom before he goes over to Paul's house, and, that's what he needs to do for the next 90 days. Well, that's not fixed. As time passes and Jimmy does really well with that, well, trust is built. So, Jimmy's not complained. He's been where he needs to be. It's 90 days later. Trust is built. Okay, great. Just go over and you're fine. We know you're there. Just send a text. So it can change. And that's why I put them as expectations. The other thing too is that if something major were to happen, like a rule, the expectations also can be changed to accommodate a rule being broken. So, for example, you can look at whether it's going to be a loss of full privileges if a rule is broken, and then there needs to be an intervention. So the expectations around driving the car to school are kind of null and void. That may have been part of the problem. You may want to say, okay, well, we're just going to keep the car away for another month. Okay, so your child's going to be excited to hear that these are expectations and that they could change over time based on their ability to follow through with the expectations. The other thing you're going to want to let your child know, and again, we're going to get into the 90-day plan, but letting your child know that they'll have a chance upcoming to review all of the expectations and give their ideas of what they think should happen once they prove themselves over a 90-day period of time. Okay, so expectations are set on regulatory items. So that's just, what I'm doing on a daily basis here. Here's the categories to think about. We've got phone, we've got going out and curfew, we've got dating and car, computer use, screen time, Facebook. And I actually put these as separate because computer use can be, around school use of computers. Screen time is all of the above. How many times per day are you engaging in any type of screen time? And Facebook is really about how the account looks and who gets to be on it, and those kind of expectations. Chores, that's an expectation category. Schoolwork, what's expected there. Money, who's earning it? How much are you giving them? Are you giving them money? Health, how are they going to take care of their exercise needs? What should you be expecting of them? What were they able to do at their program that they should be doing at home? Family time, what are you guys going to put together to bring the family together, and what's your expectation of your child's participation in that? Work and volunteer time. When we talked about resourcing, we talked about bringing in other elements into the natural systems of your child. And so, again, what are the expectations? You're going to have to define, yeah, we expect you to have a part-time job, or if you don't, we expect you to volunteer, but you're going to have to fill in some time with that. The other thing, and I could actually put this one in its own category, free time. Um, you're going to have to define free time because, again, when you're looking at a structure and you're looking at this category, you want your child to know what they can do in their free time, not what they can't do. So a lot of people just leave it at, okay, well, you can't go just off by yourself in free time. You're to stay in the house. Okay, well, the kid says to themselves, what on earth am I supposed to be doing? Then you don't define what they can do. Kid goes and flunks himself down in front of the video games. Then you're all annoyed because they're in the video games. And you said, you say to them, well, I didn't want you to be doing that. And then they, they're wondering, well, what can I do? You didn't tell me what I could do or not do. So be really definitive about free time. And again, you are going to target all of these to your child's trouble areas. So again, if your kiddo didn't have really a problem with the phone, just have some brief expectations. Just outline it, cover it, be done with it. Please don't write 2-page documents for each of these categories. I would say no more than 5 bullet points per each category. Because again, this is a document, it's a compass. It's a generality, and it's for them to see, it's for you to see. This is your guide, this is your compass. Don't make it overwhelming, and don't get into little nitpickies here and there. And please don't make it like a Monopoly game, pass, go, collect $200, or don't pass, go back to jail. Like that's just, it's very behavioral, and you want this to be a living, breathing type of document. Okay, so let's look over an example. So James is a 17-year-old boy who is returning from treatment. Prior to leaving, he had a real problem with computer game addiction and anything electronic. He had problems with medicating his anxiety with marijuana. We need to target the specifics and what the expectations are now. So today's expectations should reflect the work he's done, but give him a framework to prove he is trustworthy. So here's what that might look like. So you can take a look at this. So let's say that he had a problem with the phone where he was on the internet. So for the first 90 days, you're going to see if he can just handle a phone without the internet, and then you're going to worry about it then. Going out, you're fine with him coming home at 8 on school days, and then 11 o'clock on weekends. He used to play video games with friends, but you want to give him a little leeway. So, um, he's to inform you about the whereabouts, and he's to hang out with approved friends. So you're going to know where he is and with who he is. And you will let him know that you will spot check. So you may be checking his whereabouts and he's not there, there'll be a consequence. Um, any unknown friends may stop by the house for dinner and to meet parents. So those are your expectations. So dating, the girlfriend should be invited over for parents to meet James, and the girlfriend will stay in the living room or monitorable area. Car, driving only to school, work, volunteering, and back. No driving of friends for the first 90 days. Computer use. Computer will be in common area only. Parents will stow laptops or iPads at bedtime. James will return on time. Facebook, James will allow friend parents, so he has to friend his parents. He will keep respectable pictures and thoughts. And again, the computer is going to be used in the common area. So, can he dig in and have another account? Well, sure. I mean, there's ways around this, but here's the expectations. And I would say, let a child meet their expectations. And if they really don't, it's going to show up at some time. Don't go digging for it. Okay, screen time. How many hours? James gets 1 hour of screen time per day after his homework is completed. So when everything's done and there's his free time, he can watch something either on TV, he can play a video game, he can, be on the iPad or on his Facebook, but it's only for an hour. And the screen time, the parents are saying here that all games will have to be approved by the parents, and online gaming and role playing are just those are disapproved of, and the expectation is he's not going to be on those because James was addicted to those before. All content on TV and movies are subject to parent approval. So, if you walk in and he's watching some horror film and, you really are not okay with that, you can say, I'm not okay with that. And I don't approve of that. Please switch the channel. Chores. James is going to walk and feed the dog daily. He's going to maintain his bedroom and help out with chores that are family projects. Um, Schoolwork. James will complete schoolwork after school and do his best with the schoolwork, passing grades. So James wasn't a real academic, and parents just want him to do his best, and they're not going to hammer away on that so much, but give him an expectation. Money. James going to be looking for a part-time job. Before, part of the problem was, that he just kind of either took money from his parents or, just kind of expected that he was going to be handed an allowance. And parents are cracking back and just saying, hey, if you want to go to movies, you want to do stuff, take your girlfriend out, that's all great, but you're paying for it yourself for at least the first 90 days so that, you have a chance to prove to us that you understand money. Health. So at the program, James has been able to exercise nearly every day. He's in better shape. He feels good about himself. So you're going to say to him, okay, the expectations when you're coming home is that you're going to maintain your health. So this is, you can put medication in there too if you wanted to define, taking medication. But again, if your kid already does and it's a non-problem, then, I don't know that I'd put it under expectations. So James will be involved in a form of fitness or exercise at least 4 times a week, um, for at least an hour at a time. But he gets to choose what it is. Um, and it's subject to your approval, but he's choosing what it is. And you'll look at the calendar together to see when it happens. Safety checks. So James will be drug tested by parents periodically and will comply. Again, his problem was marijuana use. And so, if he's coming up high, then, there's going to be a problem, and that is breaking, the family rules. And so we'll get into that. But again, the expectations is that's not going to be a problem. You're going to be drug tested and you're going to be compliant. Family times. James will attend family meetings and dinners. Family needs will come first. Free time. So in James's free time, he is welcome to read books. He can nap. He can skateboard. He can talk on the phone during free time, or he can suggest an activity and come to mom and dad and say, hey, you know what? I was just thinking of, building this thing in the garage with the tools and whatever. Can I? Yeah, of course. So he's coming up with something. So here's an example of a home plan that one of my families used. And, there was just up front, just some details. And when I'm sending you the notes, you can look over these. But this is basically about every category. So it's about, schoolwork, money, car, transportation. There was some definitives. I mean, this guy got really specific and said that his son was going to have a haircut once every 2 to 3 months. And you can do that. You can get as specific as you want, but I would say don't waste your time unless it's a real target area. So let's say hygiene was just really, not the greatest. Well, put in some expectations about hygiene. Um, and the follow through on that. Okay, so here again, car, transportation, alcohol, drugs, hours, curfew, lights out, family expectations. So again, your school is probably going to provide you with something that looks a great deal like this. So just be thinking of these categories. What we're going to do is look at, well, how does that apply to everyday life and the absolute structure? Okay, so going back to James, here is what his rules looked like. The rules in his family were relationships come first in our family, no electronic devices or substances that get in the way of healthy relationships will be tolerated. So again, this is a very relationship based rule where okay, if you are on your computer all the time, we can't get you off, we can't regulate you, you're not going to regulate yourself, or if you're starting to use marijuana again, this is cause for some serious intervention. This is cause for a family talk. This is cause for, all the wheels to kind of, stop for a second. The second part of their rule is honest and open, respectful communication. So all communication will put relationships first. So what used to happen in their house was, a lot of yelling. Mom and dad yelled too. It wasn't just James. Everybody was a yeller. So they've really been working on that, and that's what they're looking at. And so if yelling and stuff starts to really digress, that is cause for major intervention. Let's stop everything and address this. So that's what the rules are for. So again, with James, if he's staying out overnight, again, do we know that he used substances? He might have, and he's making himself look guilty, but he was not honest and open or respectful in his communication of where he was going and overall the family. So he broke an expectation and a rule, and everything really should pause and stop. His world should pause and stop. Okay, the best rules really are and expectations are involving your student. So the categories that we just looked over, you're going to want your student to review the categories and get their input first. So have a discussion with the therapist present and have your student give input and her ideas. And the beauty of this is that students often come up with way stricter consequences and expectations than you would dream of. So every time I've ever asked a student, okay, well, what if you relapse the type of behavior? What do you think should happen? They often come up with something way more amazing than any parent could come up with because they're thinking about that and they're thinking about how it applies to them. So you get a lot of really good feedback. And again, your child isn't probably going to give BS answers at this point. They do want to come home. They're not trying to yank your chain. They're trying to really think it through. And so even though, when they come home, there's going to be some back and forth about what they said that they would do. Um, Having them give the ideas at least helps you think of okay, what do what's going to get to them, so like let's say that for James, he had decided that his consequence was all right, well, if I relapse, I'll go to AA and NA. I'll do like the 90-day meeting thing. I'll get a sponsor, and so that's going to be my consequence. And parents said, okay, yeah, we can enforce that, and and then we'll let you have another chance. And then if you fail that, then we're looking at Plan B. Okay, consequences and breaking of rules. Rules are absolutes, and when they are broken without fail, there's an immediate consequence. So the world kind of halts when a rule is broken, a big one, a one that is impacting everyone and is just really an infraction on physical and emotional safety, to all in the family. The consequence for breaking a rule is an intervention to ameliorate the behavior. So when I use the word intervention, it means that something's going to happen and it's going to be big. So, example, James decides to stay out until the next day and does not tell his parents where he's at. Family rules. Relationships come first in our family. No electronic devices or substance that gets in the way of healthy relationships will be tolerated. Two, honest, open communication and respectful communication. So, since he violated those, um, all our communication will put relationships first. So, again, he agreed to the mandatory AA and NA meetings. Um, okay, let's go over in specifics here. What rule has been violated? Well, all of the above have been violated. So the consequence, you're going to want to be really specific. First, ask James what you think his consequence should be. Um, and then during the time, though, I mean, when it just happens, until you decide anything else, all immediate privileges are lost. So I don't care if he's going to the prom that weekend, and he has all the plans in place and everything's been paid for. He made this decision, and it is a very hard thing to follow through when you know that your student has a lot riding on something else that they've planned. But guess what? This is a big deal, and you need to follow through. So it's an immediate loss of all privileges. There's going to be a family conversation. So that means, mom and dad and whoever else was involved is going to be there, and go through, you can, explain the thought process or what happened. And then he's going to be involved in the solution. And if he, shuts down or says, I'm out of here, I don't want to do this, the parents, you get to decide what the solution is. So we talked about that last week where, okay, we're going to have to talk about this at some point. And if you choose not to, then, we are going to decide on something. So James and his parents were able to dialogue about this. He had agreed to attend AA. Actually, they attended 3 times a week for the next month. He got a sponsor. And what the family did is they went to their family therapist an extra time per week to really help the dialogue as far as the communication around what happened and to address the issue. In the meantime, James lost all his privileges for the next 2 weeks, and he did miss prom, incidentally, and it was quite a lesson learned. During his free time, he helped parents with chores and participated in family activities. And then he was allowed another chance to earn trust. So he did get his privileges back. And with the understanding that the next time he violated that he was going to go to treatment. So again, he had a plan B, and we'll get into that during our plan B and backups. But that didn't happen for James. Actually, he was able to turn things around and did pretty well and got involved in the AA community, which he ended up really connecting with, and that ended up becoming a resource for him. How are expectations different than rules? Not meeting expectations can be consequenced by not gaining privileges or loss of specific privileges, and it lets you target behaviors. So it lets you renegotiate when student is showing themselves trustworthy. So again, expectations, if a child violates an expectation or really isn't meeting it, you can just target that without kind of going into everything else. Or you can go into everything else. It's more up to you, and it leaves a lot more flexibility than, specifying everything in advance. So, example, James decides to take the car to his girlfriend's house to visit. The expectation was that the car is only for school, work, and volunteering. So, the consequence that James and his family decided on is that he'll have to make arrangements for transportation for 1 week. So, he's going to have to hoof it to school and to work, and he's going to have to ask friends to get from point A to point B. And he's going to lose out on going out this weekend. He's going to be at home. So, no matter what plans he had, and he was pretty excited about spending time with the girlfriend, too bad. It's, it was a violation, and that's what it is. So, okay, involving your student in consequence. So we talked about this a little bit, but again, the most powerful consequences are the ones that they come up with themselves. So here's how to go about this, and here's how to have a conversation about consequencing. You want to start with letting your child know, okay, so here's what you did that didn't work for anyone. Didn't work out for you. You took the car, you took it to your girlfriend's house. Here's how it impacts me and those around you. So, the parent of James might say, what it does, it impacts me because I'm trying to trust you. And I get that, you might not agree with this expectation that I have. And yet, in order for you to earn my trust and for me to be able to down the road say, yeah, you can take the car wherever, I trust you, you're going to have to show me that you can do it in the small ways. And how it impacts those around you. Well, your mom needed the car at 7 o'clock and she told you to be back and you weren't. And so, she then was affected and that made her life difficult. So, it doesn't create happiness with us for you right now, and it doesn't create trust. And so, then ask your child, how do you want to make this right? And I would give them a pregnant pause. So, how do you want to make this right? And don't fill in the blanks. Don't give them ideas. Let them think about this. They did something wrong. How do you want to make it right? So your child may say, okay, well, okay, maybe I should lose the car, for a while. And you say, no, no, no. Okay, that's the consequence. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But how do you want to make it right? Who is impacted and what happened? Well, I should probably apologize to mom and let her know that I'm not going to do this again. Okay, great. Yeah, it sounds like a good idea. And hey, dad, yeah, I'm sorry. I just really wanted to see Megan and that was stupid. And I do need to earn your trust because I want to take her out on weekends. Okay. Great. So that's part of making it right. Now, what do you believe is an appropriate consequence? Um, okay. And then again, like pregnant pause, let them think it through. Wait for it. Again, especially if your child has slow processing, really wait for it. It's coming. And if it really doesn't come, you can say, okay, I get that you're not coming up with something. So I'm going to go ahead and think about the consequences and I'll get back to you on what I think should happen and what I think would be appropriate. So you're going to notice in this that I haven't spelled out or asked at any time for you to spell out the consequences of not meeting expectations or the rules. And this differs a lot from what you're going to see in parenting books and that kind of thing. But what I found over the years of working with teens is that really, if you define all the consequences for them of exactly what's going to happen, then they really look at whether they want to meet the expectation or not, because maybe it will be worthwhile to break it. Like, let's say you've got a defined, hey, if you are out partying, you will lose privileges for 2 weekends. Okay, well, let's say there's a really great party coming up and it's the party of the year in 2 weekends. Who cares? And they already know it's all defined. Well, put yourself in their situation. They are going to go to the party and then they know what the consequences is. And then, that's it. So I would leave a little bit more mystery because you don't want them just going, okay, I can just check that box. You really want to let them know that this is about relationships and about keeping themselves safe. And so, what I have found is extremely effective is letting your child know in advance that if they are not meeting expectations, there will be consequences. And just leave that real nebulous. There will be consequences. And your child may say to you, okay, well, what are those consequences? Because they're ready to, see if those are worth, breaking. And you can say, I'm going to decide that at the time. If you choose to break them, I'm going to see what I think is appropriate. That leaves your child in a state of mystery that they don't like because it could go really poorly for them. They don't have anything that they can hang their hat on. And then they're left thinking, oh, wow, all privileges could be lost for a month or two, or, gosh, who knows what's going to happen. So I like statements like that. The other reason I really like them is because if your child does something, you don't have to be in the position of knowing exactly what you want to do at that moment. So again, if you're already defining your consequences up front, let's say your child does something like, okay, they take the car, but it was more of a mean spirited thing they did. Their brother was supposed to have the car and they took the car. And then you've already defined a consequence, and the consequence doesn't really fit the mean spiritedness of what happened. Well, that's a different consequence, but then you've already locked yourself into, the first consequence. So that's why I would say that in general, let your child know there will be consequences, and the consequences will be something that you probably are not going to like. So choose wisely. It's your choice whether you want to meet these expectations or not. It puts a little more healthy fear in them, and it leaves you in the position of power, which you need to be in because you're the parent. So, again, I hope that you understand why I'm asking you not to define consequences. Um, and again, involving your child when consequences do come. Okay, once again, rules and expectations must be sustainable. So, when you're looking at all of this, make sure that when you go over your expectations, do a hypothetical or what. So okay, back to James in the car. When his parents were looking at that rule, they were able to say, okay, James will drive the car from point A to point B and come home, or what? Or he's going to lose the car privilege. So, is it enforceable? Who's going to take the keys away? Is there somebody there to monitor it? Um, the computer. Well, okay, is James going to at any time be alone at home? And then what's the expectations? Who's going to monitor him? If the laptop is there, who's looking over his shoulder? Do we want James to have alone time? What are we doing with that? So start looking at, all right, what are the expectations and how can I enforce them, or what? You're going to do this, we expect you to do this, or what? But don't put that in the contract for your child. You put that in a hypothetical for yourself so that you can just see, okay, there's things I can do. But in the heat of the moment, this is the wonderful thing about not defining consequences. In the heat of the moment, you may want to consequence the heck out of everything because you're pissed. And, this kind of saves you from that because, again, you can just say, okay, there's going to be consequences for what you did. Well, what, mom? What? I want to know, so I can get started on them. And you can say, I haven't decided and I have to calm down, but I'm really going to think about the consequences of this because this was really out of line. So again, it creates the mystery. It leaves you in the power position. You are the alpha parent. You are the leader. You are the guide. You are the one that creates the rules and the expectations, and you're not locked into some framework that they can hold you to. Okay, as you make these, go through your expectations, ask or what, and get into their brains on it. So, if I would put your rules and expectations and then take them to the therapist and say, hey, what do you think? There's something I'm not thinking. I'd ask them to think through the or what's with you. Do this with your spouse. Do the or what, exercise if you're married. If you're divorced and you're doing two separate households, do two separate home plans. And again, yes, it would be nice if you were on the same page. A lot of you aren't, and that's just the way it is. And so the rules and expectations must apply to your home, and you're not worrying about what goes on in the other home, unless the two of you are very amicable. And then, as much as possible, please do these together. If you and your spouse are really entangled on the rules of and expectations and what it all should entail and consequences and that kind of thing, I would say this is the time to go to your family or marital therapist and say, help us work out the underlying issue of why we're not coming to grips with what we should do with our child here. And, because this was a pattern before and we need to be working that out right now. So that's a great way to get rid of those old bugaboos that, used to be maybe some undermining and parenting and that kind of thing. Okay, so get out their brains on it. Now we're going to talk about the 90-day calendar plan. We're going to talk about why 90 days and how and when to flex. So I've really liked using a 90-day format because, again, it's kind of like a probation period. Yes, your child is coming home, and yes, they're reintegrating. And during this time, it's really their job to show you, yeah, you know what I did at the program was an accomplishment, and I can handle the rights and responsibilities of being home now. So again, when you're creating a structure and a calendar for them, you're not going to treat them like the kid that was constantly in trouble. You're going to make, you're going to treat them for all intents and purposes like a normal kid with some normal rules and then some specific ones that target, specific behaviors that are still troublesome for them. But the 90-day calendar really is a way for you to say to them, look, if you can get through this in 90 days, then I'm going to let you go through all the expectations and I'm going to let you see what you'd like change. And we will actually renegotiate. So if you've done really well with it and you're saying, I'd like to go see my girlfriend with a car and take it to her house for like an hour or two, and I'll let you know where I'm at. Well, okay, if you've really, really stepped up to the plate and there hasn't been all kinds of infractions, or there has, but then you took care of them and you started stepping up and that's been, pretty consistent, then yeah, I think we can try that out. So when you're doing this, you're setting a period of time that says, all right, you being home isn't exactly final. What your being home really is about is we're trying this out and seeing if, you can in fact maintain the level that you're supposed to be maintaining as a graduate of your program. And again, if you're pulling your child early, be careful because again, you're taking that risk. Okay, so let's talk about structure. This word structure gets thrown around a lot, and a lot of people are left scratching their heads, meaning, what does the structure actually mean? So, what I like to consider structure is basically putting the naturally occurring events, the expected events, the family time and the free time, and putting it onto a calendar, a visual aid where everyone can see and agree on what should be happening. And the reason I do this, let's be really clear. A lot of people think that, okay, if I put things on a calendar, I'm trying to keep my kid busy 100% of the time. And that's just not fair or normal. Okay, well, it's not fair and it's not normal, but that's not the intention of the calendar whatsoever. The intention of the calendar is really just to put into visual what your child is doing in their time. And what you can also do during that time is you can put times that are for free time. You can just specify, look, these are the expectations of how to use your time, not that you have to be busy every single minute. And again, this is basically putting your compass, the plan, into actual action. So here's what your plan looks like in everyday life. Let's take a look. So, the calendar is about forming expectations into structure. It's not about keeping them busy 100% of the time. So, when they were at their school, they had a calendar as well. They knew what the expectations were as far as waking up, what their hygiene was, what they, when breakfast time was. They were on a routine. So, you're basically just saying, you're going to have a routine here. We're going to talk about it together and come up with it. And they'll be just like you had free time at school and you knew that during your free time you could like play instruments or horse around or go out and pet the animals or whatever it was that they could do. We're also going to define what you can do in your spare time. So again, it's not about keeping them busy 100% of the time. Okay, I am a huge fan of doing this on Google Doc. I love this because Google Doc can be shared. It can be shared with your educational consultant. So if you're working with me, you can invite me on. And lo and behold, I'm able to see, okay, how is this looking? So this is actually, it's not a very clear copy, unfortunately, because of my technological lack of savvy, but it gives you an idea of sectioning off different parts of the day and what should be happening. So this family went through and kind of went hour by hour what their child could be doing. And then if we look at the 4 o'clock on Sunday, there's free time there. So that's flex time, but it's defined. It's social time, it's creative time. She can be doing crafts, she can be gardening, or doing a journal. So I really like this. The other thing that you'll be seeing is that during the week, you're going to be seeing that school is going to take a whole lot of time. And between schools, therapy, extracurriculars, maybe a little job, a walk of the dog, and TV, and helping with dinner, your child's pretty busy. So, again, this helps you with kind of that, oh my God factor. What are we going to be doing when they're home? Well, you're going to put it into a document, you're going to take a look at it, Everybody can take a look at it. The therapist can, your child can. You can even leave holes in it of, what would you like to be doing during this time? Why don't you propose some stuff? Or, if you're putting a time for exercise, okay, how would you like to be exercising? Here's some options that we thought about, but why don't you come up with some? So, again, this is a way to involve them, but a visual aid to do so. I highly encourage you to do this because, again, if you're able to do this, they will know what to expect, and it just makes it clear for everyone. So let's give an example of a weekday. You can see here there was 8 to 10 breakfast, the Super Bowl, families watching it together, chores, lunch, meal planning, and food and shopping. Um, and then there's some flex time and a family dinner, and we've got family TV, we've got downtime, and then we've got bedtime. So everything is really specifically in order here. Do you have to stick to this like you're in the army? Absolutely not. But it's a flow, it's your compass, and you want to go ahead and have this be defined because, again, if everybody's kind of lost on what should be happening and your child sort of, is insipidly kind of hanging around, "Ooh, I'm bored." Okay, well, what are you supposed to be doing in your spare time? Go find something to do. That's your responsibility. Why 90 days? 90 days is a set amount of probationary time. After 90 days are met, it can be renegotiated if expectations are met. So we've discussed that, and I just wanted to reiterate it. Okay, again, defining that free time. What can they be doing? So ask your child what they'd like to be doing in their free time. Have these conversations in advance and have them define some things. When they're home on a home visit, practicing free time is kind of a great way to see if they can maintain that. Okay, last week or 2 weeks ago, we talked about resourcing. And resourcing really, again, is adding other systems, other people, other events into your child's life and having them come up with how they want to resource themselves. And these things all get put on the calendar. So, again, there's things going on in your child's life. If there's things going on that they're looking forward to in events, they're going to get themselves there. So there's volunteering, there's family time, there's time with friends, there's extracurriculars. You will notice that the schedule's actually going to fill up pretty fast. So this is what a structure is. A structure isn't some nebulous thing of we have to have structure and it's all about rules. A structure really is taking the expectations, putting them into calendar form, looking at, okay, this is how you go and live your life. This is what your life looks like on an everyday basis, and letting your child be involved in that discussion. So that's where we're going to conclude tonight. I hope this has been helpful. I know it sounds like a lot, but hopefully, as you're formatting it down, you're going to see that the more you're able to define rules, then expectations, and then put it together on a calendar, the more you're going to be able to then go to your child and say, okay, so let's have a dialogue about these. These are our expectations. What are your expectations? And what would you like to see happen? So again, you can then co-construct this, and you can do it over a period of time. So I don't have a slide on this, but you're probably asking yourself, well, when do we start doing this? When's a good time to start thinking about this? And here's what I'd say to you. I would say that you should start doing this for your home visits. And so you should basically put a structure into place for the home visits that mirrors what's going to be going on when your child is coming home. And the reason that you want to do that is then you get to practice, you get to see what it looks in real time, and your child gets used to that. That's the new drill at home. So don't wait until 2 weeks into your child's home to put the expectations down. Have it be an ongoing dialogue. Let's say she's got a home visit, 2 months before she's graduating, and you've put together the calendar of expectations. She's looked at them, she's put some stuff she wants to do on it. She's feeling like she can do this, and you're feeling like she can do it. Okay, so she comes home, and let's say it goes relatively well, but there's a little glitch around, some of, let's say, just getting her to kind of move on from chore to chore. And it gives you time to troubleshoot that. She goes back to the school. You say, hey, this was a real, issue, and how are we going to deal with this before you come home? You troubleshoot that, and then you're making a plan. So by the time she's coming home, you're on to knowing what your plan is. So again, advanced planning is great. Involving your child in that plan, practicing on home visits, and again, being very consistent. So you've heard this probably 100 times during the course of your therapeutic journey with your child, but I'm going to say to you that anything that you do, be consistent about it. Even if a rule isn't working, be consistent with it until you can sit down and say, let's renegotiate. But stick to the expectations that you outline. And don't let the little things just, of course, you're going to have to pick and choose your battles, but the expectations are kind of like the bare minimum. And if they're all kind of not happening, or it's all kind of, well, then you really get into the rules, and that is, are we safe here? Is this emotionally safe? Is this physically safe? Can we maintain this? And so that helps you consistently reevaluate whether this is working, and whether the structure is working, and whether your child has the wherewithal to comply. And again, you're gonna, should they comply 100% of the time? Well, they're teenagers, they're not going to. So you're looking for a spirit of compliance, and you're looking for that they're going to do most of it right most of the time, and that there's going to be slip ups, and that they will apologize. You're going to teach them how to make things right, in the concept of, okay, here's how it impacted me. How do you want to make things right, and what your consequence should be? So with this, you have a framework to plan what you should be doing as far as your home expectations, rules, and your 90-day plan. And I think this is really going to help you. So next week, again, we'll go over specific questions. Please watch this, please take notes, and we will go over it, because I think this is an important subject that a lot of people do get stuck on. And let's get into some specifics about what this means. Okay, thank you again, and next week we will be live.